we get comfortable,
Right.
and we pray. Living, loving presence, thank you for this time together, for the technology that makes it so, for the ability for authenticity, realness, and the courage to feel. Let us open our minds and our hearts and possibly be changed by what we might hear. Grateful to the Grief Recovery Institute for all of their great works over 44 years in dealing with what it is we know are heart issues, because we feel. So we say thank you for Unity of Chautauqua, for this possibility of being together, for all of the good seen and unseen, and we are grateful. Amen. I'm Reverend Therese. I'm up from Hilton Head Island. So I'll give you just a scotch of a background. The Grief Recovery Institute is located in Bend, Oregon. It was started about 44 years ago by two men, Friedman and Friedman, one guy, James was the other. They were BFFs living in San Francisco area, and one lost a son to a drowning, top of 2 to 4 years old, something like that. And he found that he was walking around trying to get help with what he did not know what was wrong with him, because he just were clumped, so to speak. And then he realized one day, wait a minute, my head is not broken. They keep trying to talk to my head. My heart is broken. And at the same time, his friend had gone through a second divorce and lost everything. Custody of children, money, all the things that are tangible. So we have one that's non-tangible, right, with a death of a child or anybody. And then it's a tangible, but not something you hold in your hands like a house. And they were friends, and they were realizing, oh my gosh, we have these same feelings. So they started this work, two men. Kudos, yes. So one just passed, John James just passed this year. His son is leading it now. And so I was at Unity of Melbourne soon after my husband passed. Well, we were there because we did a service there. And so the year is 2012. And oh, Janine knows this man, and I forget his name now, but it will come to me. He gave me this book. And he's like, I think you're going to want to read this. And I thought, it's called the Grief Recovery Handbook. I thought, yeah, no, I'm not reading it. What are you, now you're telling me not to agree? What? Lynn,
Oh.
Dr. Lynn, he was on the board. So I never read it. And then I read it. And I thought, oh, this is interesting or whatever, you know. And then someone said to me, oh my gosh, you speak as if you're an instructor. And I'm like, oh, I do. I guess maybe it sunk in more. So I went, my church, my board paid for me to go and become a recovery specialist. So I went in January of 2019, and it's a four-day, you do lots of work before you go, you sit, you literally do this to your chest and your heart, so your heart's exposed, and get everything out. And you're certified. And my growing edge, I was told, was that I talk too much about God and spirit in my life. This is a non-theological process versus, like you might hear at some churches, a program called Grief Share, which is all scripturally based. This is not. This is basically, my heart is hurting. I need to figure out why, and then I need to re-engage in life. So that's the synopsis. My life as far as death started the week after I was born, when my grandpa died. So there's losses that are tangible and not tangible. I've mapped out how many, I went to 8 grade schools. My mother died when I was 11. And I got divorced, 100 other things, I think, between then and now. And they're all okay. So when I have my groups, I don't say, oh, what's your loss? Oh, you have a dog, then you come to the dog group. We don't qualify what the loss is. We're just hoping people will identify that there has been a loss, which is causing the pain. So it's about moving from, like we say in Unity, from our head to our heart space. It's evidence-based and documented well over all, it's taking off like wildfire all over the world. So if you were I've had people call me and say, I'm in Washington, D.C. and my mother, I said, hold on, and I just get them a number and someone will do this. So I was asked to do work for a non-church organization. And then I thought, oh, well, maybe this will apply to churches too, because in my church, we've had 56 deaths. In other churches, they've had turnovers of ministers, and then COVID hit. So it produces change, often unwanted, right? Sometimes mandatory, definitely unfamiliar. So accepting change, acknowledging loss, and allowing grief. It doesn't mean being a victim. It's about saying, wow, this has happened. Maybe that's why I'm feeling this way. Maybe why I'm overeating, not eating enough. I'm drinking too much. I'm not eating, I'm working too much. I'm not, I'm whatever all the extremities are, which I'm giving you a 8-week course in an hour. My email, which I will send you an email from this, it'll be Therese Lee at GRM, which is a grief recovery Methodist. It's actually specialist, but at Gmail. And I'm going to send you this PowerPoint as well. And then they have a ebook version of this I will send you if you want to read that. And then you can also go online and they will send you a book actually yourself. So it's I usually start with this to try to get an understanding of where you all are. What do we want to talk about tonight? I mean, I can talk for hours about probably anything, but tonight let's talk about you and how we can get you leaving maybe a little bit more uplifted and or clear on what it is you might want to do further work on by yourself. When you see this picture, what evokes in you? What emotion? Sadness.
Hopeless.
Depression.
Sadness, hopeless, depression.
And emptiness. That hole that the wind blows through, you know? Did you get emptiness too, Truth?
Emptiness, yeah. So sadness, hopeless, depression, emptiness, the hole the wind blows through. And I see heavy. Heavy.
Yeah, that's true.
Come on in. Bleak. Part of that has to do with the way the picture's projected, but. Gray, and when I think, so many houses now are being built with gray in it, and is it Gary or Grey? So some of the symptoms of grief because grief has always 99% up until today been associated with a death. And what we're trying to realize out into the world is that there's all sorts of kinds of grief. So we have reduced concentration. So when I work with my widows or widowers, I say, have someone drive you. Sense of numbness, like, is it sunny out? I don't know how I feel. Right? Disrupted sleep patterns. I still have them 10 years later. Change in eating habits. I'm 25 pounds down from the fluffiness that I got afterwards. And I didn't eat different. I stopped going to the gym. My body just went wild. Roller coaster of emotional energy, right? What else do you feel when you've had a loss or a major change? What else might show up in your life that you can recognize today?
More just challenging to get motivated.
Challenged, oh yeah.
And for me, grieving school shootings and anger that we can't get this under control, which doesn't help the situation. But
Right. But at least you can identify that, and then we can unpack that. That would take a whole day, but it's at least you can say what it is. Because oftentimes we don't know, and it's not about it's not what I say. It's someone's like, well, is it too soon? Or this is what I hear most often. How long ago did your husband die? I say, well, about 10 years, and they're like, oh, from the way you talk, it's like yesterday. I said, yeah, it could be yesterday in my heart today. And then usually give them the international peace sign. and walk away. Because unless you have been through any kind of a loss without it having been shut down. So my mom dies, I'm 11, she's been dying my whole life. I didn't know that. I just thought she was sick. And we were told, you will never talk about her again. You have a stepmother. And to my stepmother's children, who are also my brothers and sisters, you will never talk about your father again. Okay. So what happens when we're told by people in authority or so I'm very, I don't usually tell people I'm a minister when I'm doing this either, because there comes to be an authority thing. You're just shut down, you stop talking, right? Or you start acting out because the pain is gonna ooze out some way. I'm anxious, no, I'm worried. Oh, I'm a bit angry, wait, maybe I'm depressed. Well, I'm sad, well, we're all worried, right? So when the town of Bluffton called me and said, we just don't know what to do with our people. That we have lack of motivation in our staff. And I said, well, how are they all feeling? The woman's like, I didn't ask. I said, well, if you want to hire me, then I'll ask them for you. So for $50, I got to ask the town of Bluffton, because there's a value in it, right? And so they were able to say, well, my coworker came in, he had COVID, he didn't have a test, and then he died. So I'm mad he didn't test, I'm mad he's dead, and I'm mad that I, have to wear a mask, and then he's not here now, and now I have to do his work. So once you start unpacking it, and someone else said, I'm a new mother. I want to work, but now I'm working at home, and I love my daughter, but I don't want to be with her all day. That was a big reveal, because we start comparing, thinking, wait, there's so many people who would want to have a daughter, and now I have a daughter. I said to her, stop the comparison. Just feel what you feel, and then figure out how you're going to, it still gives me God bumps, how you're going to deal with what it is you're feeling, right? What else might come up in your mind? We said this: sadness, hopeless, depression, emptiness, hole through the wind that was going through that guy, heavy, bleak.
I just don't get excited about things as much.
Like blasé.
They don't get excited about.
Not excited. Or shame on me, I'm excited. Did that to myself one time. 6 months after Tom dies, I'm at his nephew's wedding. I'm officiating it, and then I had a glass of wine. And I'm out dancing, and in the middle of the dance, I am smiling, I am laughing, I am dancing. Tom is not here. To the floor. Puddle. I never knew what an anxiety attack was. If you would have told me something, you're going to have it, I'd be like, oh, that's for weak people. I've had so many, I didn't even know. Where the breath, you can't breathe. So not getting excited. I didn't know I had lost all my dreams. And then what we realize as we start unpacking all this stuff, which is why the work takes 6 or 7 or 8 weeks, is because then you realize, oh, I did that back then, and I'm still doing that to myself today. And grieving was always like, just quiet. So what I always say at a funeral to people is, so in a month, I'm asking all of you to choose a day and call the wife, the widow, the brother, the sister, because that's after the quiet settles down, after the busyness. In a month is when they really need you more than today. Thanks for the flowers and the chocolate, and will you call later? So this is their definition, the Grief Recovery Institute. Grief is the normal and natural emotional reaction to loss of any kind. You could lose your purse, you could lose your house. It's still a loss. We're not qualifying. As well as the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a pattern that's familiar in behavior. So you're used to getting up every day and going swimming. Some little kid goes in my pool and where I live, and some little kid didn't wear a diaper. So there's a little something to roll in the pool, and we can't go swimming. So after that keeps happening, I'm frustrated. And then I go, oh, wait a minute. So I'm not grieving, but I've had a loss in a pattern that was familiar that I got accustomed to. So again, no comparison between the losses. One of the things I deal with the people who come to Hilton is they come, there's no Macy's. The restaurants are, and they're from New York or Chicago. So they're used to you know, little level, you know, I came from Chicago too, so you're a little, there's, kid just can't get a good hot phone. And they don't and then it keeps building up and up and up. I love my house, but there's no snow. Oh, I moved here because there's no snow, but there's too much sun. Right? And it sounds like you're crazy. It's not. We're not dealing with like, I should just be grateful. And the moment we start shooting on ourselves is when we realize, stop, I need to see what I'm feeling. Make sense? And then so there's lists of things that we can do. What would I want to do? What would excite me? You know, that kind of thing. As opposed, so the whole term of this, my goal is to re-engage in life while we're alive, so that I'm no longer existing. And if someone said, are you existing? I would say I was existing for my children, my stepchildren, and my grandchildren. Early on, truthfully, if there were no grandchildren, I might have taken that drive off the road, because it just was like, what's the purpose? Why am I here? Right? So I had to repurpose who I was without him. And there was no codependency, but he was my co-minister, and he was great. He was cute too. So, you know, and then you're like, wait a minute, my bar is so high and my children don't understand. They're like, why are you not dating? I said, have you met the men in the world? Excuse me, besides these two. You know, like, who am I supposed to meet? You know, where am I going to meet them? And so I can always add humor to it, but then I have to sit with it. So it's not just for death. Friendships end. Anybody have things that happen in your family, right? Healthcare issues as well. Community, this was really big in COVID, right? Because you're like, I love Zoom, you know, and you're missing the certainty you once had. Yes. I didn't realize this because I was the breadwinner. So it wasn't that Tom supported me financially, but there was a certainty that he would be there if I got a flat tire, he would come and get me. But I had to unpack that to realize, why was I still stuck on it? Questioning your judgment. Anybody do that? Like, all the time. Releasing who you once were. One of our teachers in seminary, Bible scholar, that's spiral dynamics over, her name is E.J. Niles, over the Bible. And she said, I did not realize that when I worked for the government, she was the highest female in the government. She's a unity minister, and it was called EJ because they would never take a meeting with her if she was Evelyn. So her loss, she realized later on, was I don't know who I am other than this government worker named EJ. She was a mother, a grandmother, a brilliant Bible study scholar person. So it was interesting when she said that I have to refine who I thought, and I didn't really lose all those people, but I kind of just like nicely put them in a box over here and showed up as this. Feeling lost and unanchored. I was home free after I put my house, had to close my home. Shame and guilt because I lost my home, right? Losing traditions you loved. Who spends Christmas alone? Nah, yeah. So those types of things. So now my Christmas is a month long. My birthday is a month long. It's next month, by the way. You know, and so everything becomes a celebration so that when the day comes, it's no longer a shock to my body. Can't say I get excited. I just try to make things fun for myself. And sometimes they include other people. So the different kinds of losses. What the grief recovery says is, so when you get a flat tire, do you just wait for it to heal itself? Especially when they're working with men, they say this a lot. So when you get a flat tire, what do? You call AAA, or you go over to, you call your friend or something. You don't wait. Same with a broken heart. You have a deflated heart, you gotta do something. So these are some of the things, right, that cause it. COVID for sure. Now we have all this stuff in the government, which is a whole other level of stuff. Mistrust is another intangible thing. Divorce, moving, missing your friends, grandbabies and family, all of that happened. So many deaths happened in COVID where they were alone. Job, you change jobs for a better job, but you miss your old friends, right? Deployment, retirement. Yes.
Unintended retirement.
Unintended retirement. And everybody's like, oh, you're retired, look at how you lucky. And you're thinking, yes, and, right? It's always yes, and. So we get really mindful of what we congratulate people on or rib them on. I'm a ribber. What else would we add to this list? Caregiving. Old in body or in mind? Yeah. So I take widows. I haven't taken widowers yet, but I take widows to the beach and swear. I say, what's the word that you could never say? And they'll come up with one of them. And then that's when we go to the beach when no one's around and we just yell them out. And someone did that with me. And you don't have to say I'm mad at God or my husband or my wife or my husband, what child or woman. You just say the word. It's so good for your facial. So now, don't you know? And I said, my mom's like, you do what? I said, I know, Mom. She just thinks I'm so weird. And then CBS or NBC or somebody talked about how it is that when you, in your moments of trying to get rid of grief, you swear. So, you know, some people like that's not very ministerial. I said I was a daughter, wife, child before I was a minister. So, and they're just words that we give, but it's amazing. Someone's like, I never said that before. I said, say it again. And then they say it again, it could just be like, ass. And then they go, eh. And then all of a sudden, it's just, and you can see their whole heart opening up. And then they forgot why they were sad, so. Because we can be mad, and Byron Katie's work, and they always say, don't bring in any others' work, but Byron Katie, if you've ever done it, her work, you do these worksheets, and you say, like I did, I don't know how many, I was mad at God. You said that you were, or I was mad at Tom, those are really hard to do. Like you said you would love me forever. Is it true? Yes. Did he? Yes. Well, then what's your problem, Therese? It's basically you start unpacking it and realizing I've just made up a story. Because he still loves me, it's just, I can't feel it. Right? So it's never too soon to heal. I'm working with someone called me last week and they're like, I really want to do this work with you. I'm okay. Well, you know what? I don't think then she called me back a week later. I don't think I want to feel that much. I'm like, okay, call me when you're ready. Because I don't do the work. You do the work. I just guide you through it all. So here's this is a pretty profound picture. It was not written for grief. And it's a statue of wire, right? Like chicken wire almost, with stones in it. And then someone attached to it that when we compare losses, we put the focus in the wrong place. So you should not be as upset, Susie, because it was only your cat that died versus my brother. Well, the cat was this person's life. The brother was this person's life. So we don't compare. You lost a job, I lost a car. Great, we have a loss. So that's what we all have in common, our losses. And we don't rate them at all. So let me interject, or maybe it's coming up. Okay, so comparison robs the dignity because we never know how someone else feels. So when someone says to me, oh, I'm a widow too, I know how you feel. I know. What I want to say is, no, you can't.
Somebody will say something, it brings up my comparison, and I reject it before I digest it.
Can I share why you might do that? You can look at it yourself. It's the uncomfortableness in you. And now I'm going to have something in common with you because I have a loss with you. That's why when I train prayer chaplains, we never, ever, ever hand you a Kleenex. You might have to use my sleeve if you cry, but I'm never going to give you a Kleenex. And someone said to me, you're like heartless, you have no Kleenex. I said, giving someone a Kleenex means stop crying. And someone says, no, it means I'm being kind. I said, is it? Why would you give them a Kleenex? Because it takes your thought of, oh my God, they're hurting so much to, I'm going to help them. Let the person be in the hurt.
So,
Yeah.
Chuck, can you put, like, if somebody tells you they have a loss, you have no loss, is that
My father died when I was 14.
So when I said my mom died when I was 12, you thought, oh, my dad died when I was 14. Yeah, and it's not, there's no right or wrong. It's just when we do that, and especially when we voice it, means we're getting, what we have to learn to be comfortable with, and I've learned a lot of this with, because Janine is so different. I'm a talker. Janine is always holding in silence. So I have to, at least in my mind, I just made that up, but so I don't take her quiet as an offense. But I know that when I'm going to be with Janine, I'm going to be much more centered and peaceful. And that's a gift. So I don't, and so we get to accept people where they are. I've also had to say to people, will you sit with me in quiet? I said, no, I'm really serious. No talk. They're like, but you always talk. I said, so no, you start getting bolder, and you know this isn't working for me. Right? Yeah. So good. That's the first step to emotional and spiritual awareness. Intelligence is the awareness. Oh, I've done it. And then you catch yourself, and then you may stop mid-sentence in the comparison. Real strength comes from knowing how to acknowledge and communicate your feelings, not bury them. Because we've had a lot of demonstration of what it looks like when you're not. So think of a 3-year-old kid who isn't verbal, really. So they don't know, so they might just throw something. They're not throwing it at you, right? They might be throwing it at your head if they have a good aim. But the thing is, they don't have the words yet to say that. So if you can sit, I do another thing called BPs. It's a process that's to identify feelings, but can you figure that out? And that's what this will help with, extricating. What are those, and why am I feeling verklempt? And I'm feeling very verklempt at this time right now. I don't know what it is. Is it the shooting? Is it because my sister's a teacher? Is it because my son has a gun under his front seat when he drives in South Carolina? I don't know, but all I know is I'm verklempt. So I have to sit with that. It's not my right to tell him where to put the gun. I can tell my sister to be safe in Chicago. And I'm not in control. That's my issue. I'm not in control. Who else has a control gift? I asked this on Sunday. So here's some myths. And I hope no one says these to you ever. You can often say thank you and walk away. I've had to say these to people who run Unity. Thank you. I'm going to walk away now. Don't feel bad. Replace the loss. Oh, you can get another husband. That was comforting. Or you can get another dog, or you can get another job. Versus tell me how you're feeling. Grieve alone and give them, it's private. They need private time. Just let them, they'll call us. No, they're never going to call you because I don't even know what the phone numbers are, Just give it time. Think of the flat tire when that happens. Be strong for others. So when I said this the other day, when someone says to me, oh, you're so strong. I said, could you wish no strength for me? Because I don't want to be strong. I'm sick of being strong. I'm over it. But I would always want to call forth my strength. Keep busy. Keep busy. What else might you do?
Sort of stuck with it.
Oh yeah, because my grandbabies are 6, 8, 9, and 12. Oh, I did, but not in front of my daughter, and not in front of the kids. I'm like, really? Like, what I always use their dad. Like, what do you think your dad would say? He's like, I don't know. We talked about it. I said, okay, well, if you want to talk about it, I'm glad to talk about it. But your kids are curious, and they're brilliant. I mean, they could take the gun apart and put it back together and never hurt themselves in the real world, because that's what they do with Legos, and that's what they would think they would do. So, yeah, it's tough because I'm the step grandma, I'm the stepmother. Yeah, so it's okay if you thought you were over it. It fill in the blanks, but it hits you all over again. Song comes on, a whiff of some kind of smell. It's okay to fall apart after you thought you had it under control. There's the illusion, control. You are not weak. Healing is messy. There's no time. No time. So on Mother's Day, I don't sometimes, I mean, I always think of my mother because I look just like her. And I'll go out and buy a Mr. Goodbar or something. But, and then some days I can't. I have to call my coach and say, okay, I'm having a real hard of today. It's Mother's Day, Father's Day. So all of those times when I can look at a calendar, the months she died, you know, those types of things. So accepting change, acknowledging loss, accepting change, acknowledging loss, and then allowing what I call grateful feelings thereof. So we move after we do the work of ourselves from the survival mode, which means we're breathing barely, to recovery mode. Recovery doesn't mean that you stop loving them, that you don't still celebrate their birthdays or miss them or have pictures of or whatever. And we get back into living through the integration of all of that at your speed. So even when I have a group of 7 or 8 people, everybody has a different loss and everybody is healing at a different rate. And it's all right. It's always all right. Whatever you're feeling is all right. And that's what that's what I say. Heal it. To heal it, you have to feel it. This is probably my greatest love of this work. Because I was told, you know, study Kubler-Ross's work and you're gonna be great after you get through those 5 steps. Well, there are no steps in grief. Though Kubler-Ross wrote about the 5 steps of dying. So the process for those who are end of life transition, whatever that disease is. This is about grievers. They call ourselves grievers, which I like to, I don't, but that's what they do. So grief is individual and unique, no stages. It can't be neatly organized. And here's a perfect graphic for it. And I got this at about year 5, not this, but that. And I remember calling someone and saying, oh my God, if I gotten it, what would that have done for me at year 1? I don't know, because I'm crazy. With all my training, it was just so, and never a loss in faith in God, I just didn't know I was gonna breathe. So what's not on here are the tsunamis that happen and the cha-chas. When you go back from being disorganized to fearful, and then you're disorganized, and then you're so OCD. And the crazy part, people would call it crazy from the outside, and I just call it the cha-cha. Because we don't know. And this is just someone else's really good explanation of what it looks like. There's probably other things we could add in here. Re-entry troubles, you know, like, I don't know, like how am I supposed to show up? Like I didn't go to national conference this year because so, and I realized that was a re-entry thing for me. Depression, loneliness, guilt, isolation. Those don't ever serve us. But once we can say, oh, look at me, I'm doing this. And I have this on a piece of paper, like on my mirror, so I can see it. So like, where am I today? Oh, okay, I'm up over here, great. Oh, I'm up back over there. What do you think when you see this? Confusion. Like what, like you said, what the challenge to motivate? Like, wait, what am I supposed to do now? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, that's how it really feels. And that's what you think everybody thinks you're supposed to fit into.
That's why nobody else's opinion, seriously, more than ever, and nobody ever has the right. I mean, I have certain friends I can say, so how did I show up with that? And they're like, and then we can talk about it later. Sure, this says up here, loss and hurt, shock, numbness, denial, emotional outbursts, anger, fear. So for me, I could laugh, like I was laughing last night in the middle of that music concert. And then I cried. I don't even know who the pianist was, I'm crying. Fear, searchings, disorganization, panic, guilt, loneliness, isolation, depression, re-entry troubles, new relationships, new strengths, new patterns, hope, affirmation, helping others, and loss, the adjustment to the loss. So this looks so nice, doesn't it? Like, okay, I'm gonna go through these and then I'm gonna be fine. But this is the reality. This is a reality, you don't know. And it's gonna go on forever. The thing is, you just show up differently, and that's what people say. Oh, I never would have known that you were ever sad. Like after I got divorced. And I said, well, you're not with me at 3 o'clock in the morning when I can't breathe. I'm working. I'm supposed to show, I'm working right now, so I'm not going to allow that to interfere. That's when I was a workaholic. So what I know is when someone makes a judgment about it, you don't see that way, is because then I'm wondering to myself, and I'm always in a self-reflective mode. So am I appearing inauthentic? And there is time for things and there's not time for things. But I say to people, if you're I've sat at a grocery store, put my cart away and said to the person, I have to leave now because the song is making me sad and I'm not coming back in for the groceries. It takes a lot of chutzpah for me to do that because I'm embarrassed. There's frozen foods in there. And the woman looks at me, I said, I'm going to go now, leave the cart. But I've learned now for self-care, I had to do that. I could not hear that song anymore. I heard the song last week, it's fine. I heard it next week, it's fine. Today, it's not fine. So when we're really in touch with what that is that's happening in our body. Now, when other people are involved, because I know we have caregivers here, I don't even know. It's just a whole nother, you got two of these going on almost simultaneously. And I'm going to ask you to continue to go back to take care of yourself first. There are Unity booklets, and I did not have them in my trunk, but I will get them and send them to Barbara on caregiving. Beautiful, the booklets they make, and how caregivers need to take care of themselves. Myself a note, and that's part of the outreach, so those are free. Because Jim Blake, president of Unity, his daughter had cancer, and then his marriage dissolved. He switched jobs 4 times, and then Tom died, and it's just like, Therese, I don't know what to do. I said, maybe you need to start feeling. So when he took over Unity, here's my question of him, because he's about 6'6" and about 300 pounds, just a solid wall. He kind of walks like this, literally, it's just that big. And I said, will you lead with your heart? Will you lead Unity with your heart? And not get all involved in what the money is and all of that. And he said, I promise, because that's what Tom had done. And he's doing it. So we must grieve and complete, this is the key here, unmet hopes, dreams, and expectations. So what you might do is talk about what unmet hopes, dreams, and expectations that you probably haven't thought about your dad, because he was gone at 14. I think about that with my mother, or I see people with their mother and I think, oh, I wonder if that's what I would have done. So you literally name them. It's so Janine, if I can use you as an example, there's dreams that you might have had with your mom at this age. They're not gonna happen. Whatever that is, it might have been snow skiing. I'm just making that up. Because you can't do that back there, right? So that would be something like you would just write them down. There's also thank yous. You're like, oh no, there was nothing left unsaid. Oh yes, there's always things left unsaid. And then so you give the thank yous and then also forgiveness. Please forgive me. So I went back, my father, who was my champion and literally kept me alive as a child in an abusive household. I said, please forgive me for not knowing that you were there to protect me. He's dead. I don't know. All I know is that's what I'm feeling today. Now tomorrow, if I did work with him, it would be something else that I would ask him forgiveness for, and I would thank him for something else. So this isn't just a one-time deal. Feeling stuff. When someone comes to your mind, my friend Jennifer from ministerial school passed at 42 5 years ago. So the other day I just wrote down, still thinking about you and still mad that you're dead. And, literally, I'm still mad that you left at 42. And I'm sorry that you had cancer. And just things again, and I'll just take it and I put it in a box that I have. And I wish you were here. You would love Chautauqua. That's what I said the other day. Oh my God, and we could have done that, and we could have laughed, and we could have done this, and we could have sang. And, so it keeps her alive, and it keeps me moving through it versus just sitting all day, just in a lump, which I can be a lumpy person.
So you can. That's fine.
Yes. So if your dad was a fisherman, you can fish with your children and then with your grandchildren. Yes. Yeah. So the dream keeps living, you live because love is eternal. You know what I also figured out, and I'm not trying to rewrite theology. No, maybe I will. Because they say life is eternal. Well, I don't see him here, you know, whether it's a dog, a cat, or a person. But love is eternal. And that's when someone said that to me, a grief person, and a guy said, you know, Therese, maybe change it to love. And it makes everybody can understand that. So you can see a picture of your cat and remember that time of laughing, or your dog, or your mom. And I've just started putting out pictures of my husband. I don't have many, but the ones I have, I can get. And I can put them out and look at them and go, yeah, still mad. Still mad that you're not here. And here's what happened today. So when you come in my house, I claim I'm having a business meeting, but really I'm having a conversation probably with him. So you can say, but there's so many of these. Once you realize this, then you realize, oh wait, so could I still go on a cruise without him? Yes. Do I want to? No. Okay, check.
So if you have a big loss.
You don't cat. So you had a loss,
A
please.
loss.
Yes.
Is it that, well, I do. Losing people, which is the biggest loss to me. But is it really that we get stuck in the grief, that we don't build new dreams? I mean, I don't know how you ever get over a loss of a child. To me, that's the ultimate loss. But just, if you lose something, no matter what it is it that you get stuck in the grief and you don't get a new dream? I'm kind of.
So I don't have anybody's answers.
Yeah.
I'm not a therapist, I'm an awareness. So
Awareness.
really
Your
clear on that. So with children, and I have no children of mine, but I have had nieces and nephews die in vitro, born, lived 1 week. And because we're all faith-based here, I will tell you what my licensed teacher said to me, Therese, this is gonna sound harsh. I mean, I was inconsolable, a 1-week-old niece. And she said, who else has died in your life? I said, my mother. And she said, and you know, my grandpa, my uncle. But she said, okay, so why are you more upset? Why are you so upset about your niece? Were you this upset when your uncle died? And I said, well, my uncle was 80. And that was my response. She said, here's where the pain is. You think there should be pain because this little vessel was only this big and your uncle's vessel was this big. I'm going to ask you to get, and I remember as if it was yesterday, she's a teacher down in Naples. Now, we don't know the purpose of another soul's journey.
Right.
Don't get attached to the size of the vessel.
Right.
So I can sit now and say myself, I'll say it to you, and you can breathe with me. Those children in Texas came for a purpose. Without metaphysicalizing it and all that, and I don't know what you're supposed to learn. What am I supposed to learn from these children being shot in these little vessels, God? I mean, these are the conversations I have. Now you have the parents and the teachers and all of that. So I can see the reaction because my father was a teacher, my sisters are teachers and all that. So I get that. But what am I supposed to know about these babies? But I consider them babies, right? And I have a nephew who was just born at Cleveland Clinic and 44 hours of labor, so they're not quite sure how brain damage she is. And so I have to sit with it, like, and sit with my sister. She's not Unity, so I don't say any of these things to her, but that's my prayer. So that's why we don't categorize loss by size, because then that's our ego talking. Oh, well, they're 80, it's okay, they're dead. 4, can't die when you're 4. So what it does is it keeps us in our monkey mind of self-evaluation where death happens and stop being attached to the timeline. It sounds harsh, so I mean, I'm only saying it to you because you
No,
asked.
I
Yeah.
total agreement. That's what I'm saying. If you can take that perspective, that we don't know what that soul is, here to do. You feel lost. You get stuck in not having new dreams because we have everything.
Well,
That's
maybe
what I
we've
was
never,
wondering.
so if I had not, if you had, so what I will do when my niece is ready is to sit with her and say, what were your hopes and dreams with this baby, whose name is Teddy, who is going to die? From all intents and purposes out there. Of course, I believe in God, so I said God is the prognosis. But what were all of these? And once she can get, well, I want to play baseball, no, I didn't, no. So you start talking about it, and what happens is the power that you feel was taken away from you is given back to you, even if it's just a dream.
So you talk it through.
Yes,
What your
lots of
dreams-
writing, lots of talking. Name it.
You know, I remember we were at a class count when 9/11 happened. And we were very upset about all those things, the people that physically died. And, you know, you can't say these things to people because they think that you're absolutely, I mean, I think I said it to you at that time, and maybe I don't remember it right, but I thought that you might not have understood that.
Maybe 20 years ago, I did.
You
Yeah,
didn't. I don't
yeah.
think you did, and I thought,
Yes,
I think
thank
you
God.
have.
Yeah.
Because you're not acting the way you did that time.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that if we truly believe what in our soul that everything is a choice and that we have chosen our path, and when we're going, what we're going to do, not the personality, but the soul,
Yeah.
which
Correct.
is where that really comes the painful part, because you see the pain of the people. But I do find myself that whenever these tragedies happen, I just feel I feel for the personalities, the people that have lost them and how that's going to be. But in the grander scheme of things, they're not dead. And they didn't choose, and they chose that path to make the exit.
And I agree with
And
that
you
now.
can't say that.
Yeah.
to
20 years ago, I did.
I
Right.
think that's right, because I remember that, and I remember thinking, boy, Kelly's got a ways to go.
She's here.
But I'm glad that I can share that with you
Yeah.
now,
Yes.
because at that time I thought,
I couldn't-
well,
I couldn't
and then
get over it.
I even felt like I shouldn't be in this class at this time, because the things that I'm going to say
Would be too upsetting.
would be upsetting to the rest of the folks, and I thought I've said enough. So I remember.
So you can hold the high watch. I have to do that a lot, be quiet.
So, but I stopped going because I don't have a filter. Sometimes when I feel that there's something that needs to be said, which of course, then that spirit leading me too, I
Yeah,
think, because it's not that I want to hurt anyone or anything, it's just that I'm trying to see, we have these tools
Yeah.
to work
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. So, and that's the difference in theology.
Yeah.
So I was called by a funeral home a couple weeks ago and said, Susie Q over there, can you help her? I'm like, I said, I will do anything, and I prefer to be paid, but if no one can pay me, that's okay too. I can see my husband's eyes rolling. And so I go and I meet this woman whose name is Holly, and was vastly underpaid. I'll just tell you that. And I did walk away angry because I didn't set a boundary, and fell in love with her. So saying, we'll probably be friends now, but she's not from my church. And I said to her, so tell me how you feel about, I think her husband's name was Howard. And she said, I know he is with God, not a better place, because what is this horrible? Is this hell? And that's heaven, what? Because it's a state of conscience. She's not a unity person though. And she said, I believe he's with God doing the work that God wants him to do. And I said, okay, yes, I'll do the funeral. Because if she was so attached, because what I've had other widows say to me, or widowers, or people, or, and it's way different with children or raped people and things like that. And I've got it. I put Vicks under my nose and all sorts of things to go into those types of conversations. So I'm very present to their thoughts. Okay, why did God kill my husband? I don't believe that. So I have to wait and then I'll say to the funeral director, yeah, I'm not the person. Call somebody mainline Christian to do that funeral, because I'm not going to talk about all of those things. And I said to somebody in a unity circle recently, oh, I don't believe that God took that life. I believe God received that life. They were like, oh my God, I'm gonna write that down. She said, I get it now. Thank you. Go ahead. So it's a difference. Now, did God have hands receiving this? But if I did not believe in the soul that Tom, and you know who told me that? Dr. T, Dr. Trevor. No. This is a doctor down in Melbourne. And he said to me 3 days later, I wasn't home, you know, but there's a whole story. Ruptured berry aneurysm, 63, I'm clueless. And I'm laying on this doctor's bed, a chiropractor, and he's adjusting me and then, you know, all that. And he says, so, and he knew my husband. So this is your time. I'm sobbing. I can't breathe. I said, what? And he's like, this is your time. I said, what time? I said, Dr. Trevor, what are you talking about? He said, you are in a stage of birth. I said, birth? How am I supposed to breathe? How am I supposed to live? Tom is dead. And he's like, well, first of all, you know that, you know, you're more than just your husband. I said, yes. And he said, Tom's dying had nothing to do with you. He knew me so well, he had to get to my ego. Now, I wouldn't have thought I was in an ego mind. He said, his death was about him. Now we have to figure out how will Therese live. I was like, oh my God, because we take it personally. My niece is taking it personally that her son was born this way. Very understandable. And I don't do a lot with children because I have not had all that training, and I want more training if I'm going to do that because I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. But I can sit and hold the space and do that. But the thing is, can we get to the point where we can say that losing a leg is just as catastrophic in our heart as the dog dying and my father dying? Yes. Because they hurt the heart. And again, no ranking. So this organization never ranks. And when someone starts telling me, I'm in a big discussion with Unity headquarters because they want to push Kubler-Ross 5, you know, we're just gonna tell everybody how to get through these stages. I said, I'm not your girl, you bet. I'm not. I mean, I just was like, I don't care how much money you're gonna pay me, and they're gonna pay me. Imagine a paid gig. I said, I'm not doing it. And then we had to keep talking about with the other presenters who were unaware. They took that as the Bible. So we get to keep educating and evolving. So today here is a perfect example of you still holding loving space for Kelly all these years, probably not even knowing why. And boom, look at this blossom.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'm so happy. Not that it matters whether I'm happy or not.
No, it has nothing to do with you,
It has
right?
nothing to do
But
with
if she
me.
goes home and thinks, oh, is this been worth it? Oh, yes, it's been worth it, right? So grief, I love that this is like kind of a little path. So grief is normal and natural. It's not a pathological condition or a personality disorder. So what I'll say to people is they'll be like, oh, yeah, no, my husband's been dead 50 years. I said, tell me your favorite thing. That's it. So ask people when they're sad or could I tell you something? So I get it all the time. I go back to Unity Village. They're like, can I tell you my favorite Tom Lee story? I'm like, yes, somebody speak his name, because we go around like, oh, I don't want to disturb her. No, disturb me, please, because I'm already disturbed. You can't disturb me any more than I am, right? So these are some of the activities. It's a little bit, they're called STIRBs. So what we do instead of healing, we do things that, so STIRBs are activities that create the illusion that we are helping to recover from loss. And again, when I send you this ebook, it'll be in there. They distract your attention from sad or painful feelings. Unfortunately, the short-term energy revealed. So that's what that means. STIRB means short-term energy relieving behaviors. Chocolate, right? Too many video games, I don't know, whatever you do, right? So what happens though, we go shopping, right? Self-harm, many different ways to do that. Smoking, well, I'm not smoking because I'm vaping. Okay. Food, right? So I never ate, I didn't eat more. I stopped exercising. Well, my body was like, what are you doing, right? So boom, domestic violence happens a lot because if you can't get your feelings out or a baby dies, right? Alcohol, drugs, all that, right? So these are things that we do instead of feeling. I remember someone said to me, you should drink every night because it'll really help you. Not knowing that I came from a whole family of alcoholics. So I did for about a week. But you know what the kind of, I drank whiskey when I was a kid and stopped, thank God. But I started drinking, I drink Riesling, which is like sugar water. I was like, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? It's not even good. So, but that's what happens. And then then everybody goes into different, as opposed to feeling where I would just sit and I was taught assimilate. So you open the box, something of Tom might be in this box, so that when I pick it up and I find his pen, I don't go into, again, I never knew I would ever have a panic attack, but that happened. Grief, normal, natural, emotional reaction. If that's all you take away is, oh, I'm just normal. I look weird, but I'm normal. As you know, in the conflicting feelings when something changes in a pattern or a behavior that happens. So for those of you who are caregivers, this happens sometimes hourly and certainly on a daily basis for you. And you can work through a process of that all the time. So part of grief is emerging after you have been transformed by the pain of loss. Doesn't say death, does it? It says loss. So that's my credentials. And you see their big logo is a heart, and then they usually have little ears, like right there. It's a red heart with ears, because that's what we do. We listen to what it is, and then we help you unpack it. So I had to learn a new skill for that. But what mainly the work is about taking one person in your life, all the people in your life, one person at a time, and making a timeline of it and seeing, you know, we have the highs and the lows all the way through all of that. And then what happens is you start talking about it, or you talk about the unmet dreams and hopes, and everything comes down. We no longer are making people on a pedestal, and we're no longer the devil, right? Or the actions and things like that. So that's what that process is about. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It helps me be who I am today in a different way. And I posted something last night on Facebook. It said something like, only a widow would be able to tell you how beautiful snoring sounds. I just, for whatever reason, yesterday was so moved by all the speakers on grounds. I sat and cried, and then I went back and I thought, well, am I sad? What am I feeling? What, you know, I didn't know what I was feeling, but I found that and I thought it's so true. And I've said that to people, what I would do for crumbs on the counter and the toilet seat up. Because it helps me realize I had a great love. I have a high bar. I miss him. My job, though, while I'm still breathing and can do this, I need to still be living and talking about it so that we can bring less, what I would call judgment to what it is when people feel it.
So once you get through, I guess grief is not my specialty. So let's say once you get through a grieving period, call it a year, call it 10 years, whatever that period is, what do you think? And you've cried and you felt, and you cried and you felt. Is it that people come out of grief when they get a sense of purpose back in their life? Like, is that what brought you out of grief? And you,
Oh, I'm still grieving. I'm not mourning. I'm not mourning,
maybe
but
I'm
I would say
mixing
I'm
the word.
grieving. And then now when I get more like, oh, now I'm really missing that. Oh, I'm missing that. You know, I had a big career,
Yeah.
big money. Well, now, and then I went to homeless, literally. Didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't have a car. I had nothing. Talk about, well, so you get back in. So where you realize you've emerged was when you start, like I can walk down the street now and I'll be like, oh, good morning, sunshine. Oh, look at there, there's a cardinal, a rainbow. I find a penny all the time. I found a dime the other day on grounds. Yes, because that's a big deal for me. So what his death did for me, and mind you, I've had friends, family die all my life. This was the one that shook me up. And I think to make me understand that I have to live the principles I believe is unity. I really think it was a unity thing for me personally. And also to believe in myself and love myself the way he loved me. I was all that and 2 bags of chips to him, wasn't I?
Did you ever fear losing him before you, did that ever, because that's my thing. I just, I'm like the princess to my husband. And I know I can do everything that he does for me, but I don't want to.
Exactly.
I want to make him happy. I'm not sending him to a therapist to tell him, you really should be thinking of yourself instead of me.
It never serves to live in the future or in the past.
Right.
And without, again, this is just a therapy,
But
not a
did you-
therapy.
Did you?
Well, I met him, he fell in love with me. He said, well, you want to go to ministerial school and we'll go on a 2-year honeymoon? I'm like, and if we had not been married, we would not have made it through ministerial school. That's how different we were. I know that. And then get together. He's like, we're gonna have a church. I'm like, I'm not having a church. I don't deal with people every day. Are you kidding me? We're just gonna go on the road and do these things. He's like, I'm not teaching. I hate teaching. I'm like, maybe we should have this conversation before, Therese, right? So what we had to do is figure that out, right? Which people do in marriages or any relationships. I never feared, no, I didn't think he was gonna, he was a little Buddha belly guy. And I would say, if you die of a heart attack, I'm gonna kill you.
So you never really gave it any thought?
I don't live in fear
No.
because I lived in fear my whole life. So I never thought of, no, I mean, he was 63. We said goodbye. Okay. He never told me he had a headache. If I had been home, would it have been different? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what about rupture aneurysms or anything. I mean, still, I can't even say the word. So I don't know that. So I have to look at it. So what I would tell you today and what this book tells you is you say goodbye every night.
Mhm.
Goodbye. Goodbye on the phone, just in case you don't see them tomorrow. So when someone said to me, do you have any regrets? I'm like, no, because I left on Thursday morning. I said, I love you. He died Thursday night. I didn't find him. Police found him Tuesday. So was I hysterical? Absolutely. But if you say everything you want him to know today, just in case, not out of fear, but out of, I'm going to see how much he knows that I love him. And not of your own strength. Of course, you're going to go on or not. Someone was telling me this morning at the ministers' meeting, her mom died in the morning, 9 o'clock. We're going to get a grief program going on in Chautauqua, by the way, she and I don't know what her name is, so call me. And her dad said, I'm not going to make it through the day. And she's like, okay. He died that night. He just knew. I thought for sure I was going to die. I thought, I'm not doing this. And then I thought, wait a minute, this is Therese. That was Tom. You know, and I've talked to many end of life people like Lenita Morjani and all those people who had those near death experiences and came back, Evan Alexander. And I've served at some great churches and got those people in. The whole thing about this is that unmet needs and expectations of what haven't you said? What haven't you thanked him for? So when people are in comas at the end of their life, I just did this with one of my congregants for 8 weeks. I said to his wife's like, I don't know what, I'm not, it went from I can't live to, she just went and bought a new bedroom set after 8 weeks. Because I said, every day you're going to tell him, well, he already knows that. I said, tell him again.
Well, I do that. I
Good.
think that, I mean, I thank him for everything he does and tell him, and the snoring bit, I can relate to
Yeah.
that because when I hear him snoring, I said, it's
Might
music
not
to you
always.
now because there may be a day when you won't have that.
And you could also talk with him. I mean, you can have that crucial
I have.
conversation with him. Like,
I
so let
have.
me just tell you, I'm gonna be really mad at you. And then I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might eat ice cream or I may never eat ice cream again. I started eating sushi after Tom died. All he ever wanted me to do was have long hair and eat sushi. Who has long hair and eats sushi now?
Well, my sister-in-law, my brother just passed away at Thanksgiving, and she's got a new house, and she's like, I'm gonna make your brother's room this way, because this is how I want it. And she still calls it my brother's room. I guess that's not a bad thing.
No.
And sometimes I think, "Ooh, that's not good, but then you're saying it's not a bad thing.
Talk about him. Yeah, I mean, it's different. There are, I mean, again, I'm not a therapist, so I'm sure there's some cases of, like going back into the kid's room. He died when he was 16 and the room still at 16.
Well, she calls it his room. This is gonna be his room.
Okay. So she's gonna make like a little, maybe she'll go in there and do a reading or something. Some people call it, one of my friends calls it,
Reading, but she just like wants it exactly the same because this is his room.
okay.
But I think is that a good thing? But I guess it's okay.
You know, nobody knows. And if someone tells you what's right for you,
Oh,
I
don't
say this
tell
all
her.
the
I
time.
don't tell her it's wrong. I
Right.
just think in my head, maybe that's not a good thing, but I guess it's fine, you know.
You know,
Yeah.
it's moving forward. You know, every time someone sees one of my grandbabies, they're like, oh my God, they look just like, no, they look just like their father. So they don't, you know, but they come out with these brown chocolate eyes this big and everybody thinks that's him. And of course I promote it. But, so there's no right or wrong. When someone tells you what's right or wrong for you, I say this even every day, someone's like, you know, I'm like, don't listen to them. Keep questioning, get your resources together. I've had people who say, I read this book, it changed my life. I have other people who said I can't get through the first page. And I'm like, okay, well, you'll figure it out. Mine's all written and, you know, highlighted and all of that. And anger, there's nothing wrong. You're gonna feel happy, sad. The difference is, just like with pain in your body, you know, that it's good if it doesn't just stay in one place, because you know that means it's probably healing. Same with your emotions. So keep them going, you know, and then I go back, you know, to what Charles Fillmore said, who was like, you know, at 94, he had the right to change his mind, right, Joanne? 94, and he thought he was never gonna die. He was an immortalist.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, I guess I'm dying. Okay, after Cora, right? So this is the thing. What I love is that people are talking about it. I love that they have grief counselors that go in. I don't know what they're telling these families or children in these situations. And I remember September 11th, and I was very dutifully at my church, doing all the things I was doing. I was doing my undergrad work. And then I found out that my friend died. Oh man, I was like, we have to have a prayer meeting. We got to figure out